Born in New York, my first memories are of a city street with high iron gates, a red brick church at the end of the street, and the sound of boats on the river. I remember quietly and soberly what I wondered as a child, and all the questions left unanswered that waited to be answered later. From my third year on, we lived on Long Island. I remember the surprise of running away down a dirt road through the wild green summer of my fourth year. I remember my great-aunts, whom I were told were giants, arriving from Kentucky on their way to Europe. I remember one of them smoking a cigarette before the fire. I remember the painful, shy, animal dignity with which a child stretches to conform to a strange adult social politeness. I remember wondering about life and death and dreams and time and age and beauty, and a problem of aesthetics I had. Why wasn't an Airedale's face beautiful if it was beautiful to me? And country and city and numbers and always wildflowers, the search in the woods and wandering most of these first years along a beach. There were not many children in my childhood, as much of it was solitary, spent in the woods and along the beaches and in the imaginary countries of the worlds I made up. But what has memory of childhood to do with it? Memory is a wild and private place to which we return truly only by accident, as in a dream, or by beaten paths, to a place rigidly set by our having visited those familiar and fixed memories so often. It is better expressed in my books than in this attempt at a biography. I have never intended to write for children, and yet I seem to do it by accident, partly through love of pictures and designs, and partly because I think of a book as quickly as a dream. My first draft seldom takes more than 20 minutes, if any good, and also because I do not think, for all the multitudinous blocks of paper printed in their name, that there are enough books that are good enough for children. There is a fake complexity about our world today, and a gigantism that blinds, staggers, and blunts the senses, as it is with some relief that in children's books one finds an elemental world in which all senses must be alert to meet the challenge of a young child's most excessive awareness. Having had the luck to read 2 children, to watch them, and to get their own poetry and fictions from them over a period of years when I was on the publication staff at 69 Bank Street, I have tremendous respect for what none of us know or admit about children, for what is still to be known or remembered or discovered. Also, I am finding out that writing for children is a challenge. To write for a child is to write for an artist. They are seeing this world for the first time, and the mechanics of writing for the very young, the 2- and 3-year-olds, is not unlike writing for a puppy or a kitten. I've always been tremendously interested in and amused by the sheer elements of language, but unless a writer is very lucky, this playfulness gets shelved into preciosity in writing for other writers. But when the sheer rhythms and thunders and patterns of language are given to children, then they come into their rightful element, and there is no preciosity in that. Having had the good fortune to work at the start and beginning of a publishing house as editor of children's books with William R. Scott, whose sole aim was that of publishing original and good books that did not repeat other books in existence, I realized the excitement and still unexplored scope of this field of literature and bookmaking. And because there are still so many books in this field to be designed and written for the first time, I see little chance of escaping it for the present. To put it simply, I am a writer more interested in writing than in writing for children, and more interested always in the next book I write than in the book I've just written. But I am grateful to the world of children's books for remaining one of the purest and freest fields for experimental writing today. Most of my books have been experiments. For instance, the noisy books are a device I worked out with children to draw them into a story by questions, rhythms, and rhymes, and to use every quality of a book in timing and action, from the turning of the page and the pages without color to the final closing of the book as a part of the story. In The Runaway Bunny, I tried to put the bold, tender, repeated cadence of an ancient French love song into the real world of a child. In The Goodnight Book, and Bumblebugs, and Elephants, and The Little Fur Family, I merely dared to be very simple, simple enough for a very young child to follow. in sh-bang as I try to imitate a whispering device, and always I am interested in the sleep-inducing qualities of word and poetry that can be brought very quietly into a children's book. However, these so-called scientific and materialistic studies on differences of a 2 and 3 and 4 and 5-year-old make clear to me by, and along with my own observations at 69 Bank Street, that have given me a firm grounding and have been wonderful tools and help by which and through which a book can accomplish something else, to jog him with the unexpected and comfort him with the familiar, to lift him for a few moments from his own problems of shoelaces that won't tie and busy parents and mysterious clock time into the world of a bug or a bear or a bee or a boy living in the timeless world of a story. That is, if I've been lucky enough to write a book simple enough to do that, or to come near to that timeless world.